Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and I don't usually do these types of videos necessarily, but this one really struck a chord with me. It it kind of surprised me really a great deal, though in hindsight, I guess it probably shouldn't have surprised me. But the big news is that Dan Crenshaw threatened to kill Tucker Carlson if he ever met him, which extremely bizarre. um, a, a big threat from a military man, but he's acting very petty, to be honest. And that kind of response, is you'd think would come from, I don't know, the way, I guess the way the media phrases it, though, or portrays people, is think, oh, the crazy sort of Tucker Carlson fans and stuff like that, and people like Tucker, they would say stuff like that. They would threaten their enemies because they're dangerous. And Dan Crenshaw, being this neoconservative man who's very much part of the establishment, is dignified, and he has, experienced war. He's been in the military. He lost his eye in the military, and you'd think he would be a little more cautious about threatening somebody, but this actually happened on sort of it seems like in between an interview or something like that on GB News, and GB News first shared this video, so I'm going to share it with you.
Have you ever met Tucker?
We've talked a lot. I ever meet him on
Sorry about the language, but that is extremely insane from a member of the House of Representatives. He obviously didn't think that this would be shown or reported on or anything like that. He and the guy interviewing him, I think Steve Edgington, laughed because he thought it was a joke. He thought, oh no, there's no way that this member of the House of Representatives could be saying this sort of thing. But this is really the petty mentality of sort of the neoconservatives. I mean, this is basically in response to the fact that Tucker and him don't get along on certain policies, mainly related to war. I mean, I don't think Dan Crenshaw has ever seen a war he doesn't want to support or doesn't want to fund, whether it be Ukraine or Israel. He's all about supporting foreign countries, and those support is going to be detrimental to the United States. It doesn't matter how detrimental it is to the United States. He's going to support any war. I mean, Tucker has criticized Dan Crenshaw before. He called him McCain with an eye patch. Okay, so you'd think if Crenshaw was proud of his opinions and stuff like that, you'd think he'd be happy to be compared to McCain, though of course, John McCain is very unpopular with most people. The only people I think he's popular with is probably Democrats these days. So this kind of rhetoric coming from this kind of this neoconservative is not that surprising, given the fact that basically the majority of the neocons jumped ship from the Republican Party to basically being full blown globalists. Of course, they originated as neo Trotskyites, basically. And they had moved over to the Republican Party because the Republican Party was fighting Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. And because of their Trotskyite philosophy, they saw the Stalinist Soviet Union as the great enemy, even though, of course, Trotsky wasn't that different from Joseph Stalin. It's very, sort of inside baseball type of thing. Both were extremely evil. That's one of the sort of one of the dangerous things about the Trotskyites is they sort of tried to paint Trotsky as sort of a hero that was ousted by Stalin, and that true communism would have been successful and wouldn't have been as harsh, even though it's my understanding that Trotsky created the gulags. He was instrumental in a lot of the early evils of the Soviet Union. So, but it's this sort of idea has now shifted as the Soviet Union no longer exists. Neoconservatives get their money and get their funding from places like the USAID, which is being destroyed, which um, they funded. I think it's it's something democracy. I can't remember what it's called, but basically basically neocon organizations that supported or that made support for worldwide democracy, which more or less was just remaking societies in the United States' image. And now, if you look at places like Germany and France and UK, we've made a lot of them in our image, and now they are basically antagonistic towards the United States. Um, because the United States, in the form of Donald Trump, is sort of trying to lessen the influence, I guess, of the neoconservatives. And there still remains these neocons in the form of Dan Crenshaw and Ben Shapiro, and they have a great hostility towards uh, Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson is basically a representative of an anti-war faction of the Republican Party, which has ever since the 80s has been tried to be or was tried to be suppressed. Basically, the neoconservatives took all the major levels of institution, or all sorry, took over all the institutions along with the left, along with the establishment left. It was basically the neocons and the neoliberals, which basically you could think of as Hillary Clinton. um, but yeah, so that's kind of that's sort of the how they got their power. And Tucker Carlson, his ousting from Fox News was kind of an attempt to resuppress that, um, what was considered paleoconservative, but you can also just think of as non-interventionalist um, conservatism, or basically, or populist, as they might call him. Anyways, Elon Musk responded to this threat, and Tucker replied um, to uh, Elon's tweet with this. Hold on. Sorry, let me see if I can get this to set up. I think they're some of this stuff is getting deleted off of Twitter, so it's or X. I don't know why, but but it's not. But the main video I had to get from a different place. So let's see. Well, I mean, different place on X, basically before it got deleted. So let's see if I can find it. Okay, this is better. I don't know why I couldn't pull it up. I tried screen sharing it, but it wasn't working. Okay, here it is. So Elon was responding to basically the video, even though the video has basically been taken down in this area for some reason. I don't know why. Elon is responding to it, and he runs X, so I don't know what's going on there. Why is Crenshaw homicidal regarding Tucker? And Tucker responds, "Why don't you come sit for an interview, and we'll see how you do. I'll send you my address at Dan Crenshaw." So that's kind of sort of the antagonization. I don't think Dan Crenshaw thought that this was going to be out there, but it's kind of crazy because people would consider Tucker Carlson as something like far right or something like that. Of course, he's just populist and an alternative to what was the mainstream right wing that for the longest time, if you followed Democratic politics prior, Democrats criticized Republicans fervently for getting them into wars, even though neolibs also participated in that as well. But now, sort of there are no real populists on the left. At least, if they are, they've been canceled basically, and they have no future because what happened after the crash, after the basically uh, the banking bailouts and stuff like that. With all the bailouts in the early 2000s, basically the wealthy businesses began moving money into sort of DEI programs and promoting social justice. And that became kind of a way to drive out populist politicians, because if they did not support these sort of wild positions, they got thrown out of their respective parties. And it wasn't until sort of Donald Trump came in to destroy the right wing establishment that there has actually been some sort of competition. And Tucker Carlson represents well, first of all, he represents a populism, but like also a reformed establishment. He represents somebody who had been in the establishment. He had supported all the wars, and now he's regretted that, and now he's changed his mind, which probably makes him more popular because he's willing to say or to admit that he was wrong. If you think about it as like stuff like if you think about like other people that have sort of left mainstream news, or sorry, the legacy media, and have made their podcasts and stuff like that, or come on to different podcasting shows, like Chris Cuomo, he basically can't admit that he has made any major mistakes. He can't apologize for what he did. He just, you know, that doesn't work for him. But Tucker can do that. Anyways, just it's still insane to me. I mean, it's hard. It's kind of bizarre that there's this threatening going on. Now, it wasn't supposed to. Tucker wasn't supposed to hear that Dan Crenshaw say that. Like, that wasn't supposed to go on the internet necessarily. And I wonder if that's why it's hard, or why people are deleting it, or it's getting deleted off the internet or something like that. As I said, it shouldn't be being deleted off, because even Elon Musk, the owner of X, is responding to that. So it will be interesting to see what comes of this, but it's kind of insane that he would even be sort of saying those things, even in jest. I mean, that's trying to get or killing somebody is not something you generally joke about. I mean, it's one thing to say you're going to put someone in prison. It's totally a different thing to be like, that you're going to take somebody out like that. So it's pretty embarrassing for Dan Crenshaw, and I hope people now understand sort of the hatred that the neocons really have for the populists, or for the authentic right wing, because they see them as somebody that's going to usurp their power, because they think they deserve the power that they have, the authority that they've taken for themselves. And I bet Dan Crenshaw, being a vet, and now, and also being kind of homicidal apparently, I bet he thinks he deserves his position, and that he's given up a lot for it, including his eye. But this sort of idea that these people deserve these positions, and that this position of sort of being pro-war is the only position that's allowed to be discussed, because that's basically what happens if these guys react this way, because they're not used to being challenged, and that they don't think they should be allowed to be challenged on those issues, especially when it comes to war, because it's so profitable to them. And of course, they can't say that. That's not. But they have no arguments for it. Because they're all. It's become so obvious that there's no possible way um, to defend their positions. Anyways, so First, before I continue, let's hear from the sponsor of our show. If you are looking for a way to express your Catholic faith through fashion, look no further than ProselyTies. ProselyTies is a Catholic-owned tie company that sells beautiful and well-made ties. ProselyTies is offering Plotlines listeners 10% off if you use the code Plotlines. That's PLOTLINES. Plotlines. Use the link in the description to get your next tie. Now back to the show. I'm not a lawyer or anything, so I don't know. I mean, I would assume this would be, threatening somebody like that would be illegal in some way. I don't know necessarily how, or I don't know, you know, if that would be illegal, but I could assume that, or I would assume that Tucker Carlson could press charges against him for threatening him, but I don't know. I don't know if Tucker would do that. I don't know what the situation would be. As I said, I'm not a lawyer, but it does seem like Dan Crenshaw should not be able to get away with that, especially as a sitting member of Congress. He wasn't like on the floor of the House of Representatives at the time. He was just in between maybe an interview or at the end of an interview, and the fact that he's threatening basically a critic of his is just pretty disgusting. So I don't know, and especially on the topic of war, basically, that's the only thing they probably that's the main thing they probably disagree with. If you just look, at least if you look at Dan Crenshaw on paper, if you think about what maybe he doesn't believe in all the other things that he says, maybe he's not really quote unquote a conservative. So that would be kind of the question: is a lot of these things, mainstream or sort of establishment Republicans would campaign on all these different things, whether it be abortion, or taxes or anything like that, and they achieved very little for the last 40 years. And it's very well possible that they don't really believe in any of that stuff, or at least they only buy into the stuff that their big donors believe in. And part of that is sort of the thing they believe most in is sort of the military industrial complex, and that seems to be what Dan Crenshaw is a big proponent of. So, well, anyways, I just think that's an absolutely crazy story, and I wanted to share with you guys that. So, thank you everyone for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this down in the description. It's pretty bizarre to me. So, bye everyone.